all of these images are basically, they're not just pictures. And I think that's one of, I think it's a pivotal thing to understand, that nothing on display here is just a picture. Most commonly, every one of the images here is many, many, many pictures, and on top of that, they're all being seen through some kind of lens system. Well, of course, historically, images of Native Americans go back to the 1800s. Most famously with the collection of Edward Curtis, although he was not the only one. Very interesting things have come out about Curtis over the years, including the fact that he would go around in his horse and buggy photographic laboratory, basically. And it was like his Winnebago, I guess. And, but he used to drag around all kinds of props that he would pick up in different Indian Native American nations. And so he'd actually configure the set with things that he thought looked good, which only in recent times have anthropologists pointed out that doesn't belong to that tribe. And it's kind of funny because you know, it brings out sort of a consciousness about the aesthetic beyond anthropological acuity, you know, was not really the point in some cases, and I do think that's funny. But so there is a historic aspect to it. So I have kind of a resonance with indigenous people. I can't put my finger on where that really came from. I'm trying to now in thinking of my own childhood. But I had wanted to do a series of portraits for some time before I started. And I started officially filming in 1990 with the help of my co-producer Clayton Muncie. We went to Washington, D.C. and a woman came up to me by the name of Melody Lightfeather, who was a Native American, and she was looking at my holograms, and we started talking, and I told her that I wanted to do this, and she says, "Oh, come next week to Washington, D.C. We're having an inter-tribal powwow there, and it is the blessing ceremony, groundbreaking ceremony for the Native American Museum in Washington, D.C. And so, as I said, with Clayton and myself, we got Adam Teichman, the filmmaker, and we got our crew together, and we went down to Washington, and we set up on the mall. Actually, at one point, we filmed indoors. I got permission from the Secretary of Department of Interior to use the auditorium as the Department of Interior, and we started filming. After that, I started filming, going to various reservations where there were intertribal powwows, because this was the most convenient way to get the largest number of people together. I would take generators and lighting and turntables. There's two ways that I usually acquire. One is where the camera is moving on a computer motion control track, and the other is where the camera's locked down and the subject is rotating. And in either case, what we accumulate in this series of two-dimensional movie frames are slightly offset perspectives. And of course, three-dimensional information lives within those differences between perspectives. They're said to be parallaxially differentiated, the frames. But so we can then make holograms from that footage. Fast forward to the 21st century. I have been doing this research this last year in the format you see at the show, predominantly, the integral 3D photograph, and I was able to reappropriate some of the footage, once it was scanned, to this format, because these are all the winners of a 4-day, very intense, energy-consuming powwow in which they're being judged very, very critically by their peers for the nature of how the dance is performed, whether it's historical or non-traditional, because there are some non-traditional ones. Oh man, one guy showed up with a hologram in the middle of his his forehead as part of a headdress. Another one had holographic rainbow diffracting foil on the tips of eagle feathers that were part of his regalia. That, you know, here's a found object that's absolutely gorgeous and can be integrated into this beautiful regalia when they're not limited by the traditional parameters. Because there are traditional dancers who are absolutely traditionally dressed. And then there's this sort of outside dance where they can do whatever they want.